Hey everyone, so we are back. What is today? The 28th? I have to look at my watch. It's the 28th. It's been a busy week, man. Busy week. So we have to get into the biggest news of the day. Crazily.
What's that?
And it's not Ukraine. It's not Judge Jackson, who we're going to support. I'm going to support up in DC this week. But it's what was that, the Oscars last night?
Yeah.
I kid you not. Let me tell you the true story, right? I fell asleep on the Oscars last night, and I got a text when I woke up this morning. Somebody texted me and they were like, what did you just think about what just happened? I'm like, what? And I still didn't know until maybe like 3 hours ago what had happened. But we're not going to show the clip, and I don't know what we got going on with our screen up here, but we're not going to show the clip because of the fact that I don't want to give any more energy to it. I think everybody has seen the slap by now. If you haven't seen the slap, go on YouTube. You can find a video of it.
See memes and videos and songs.
But I know we've been talking about this somewhere in the office today, and all of us have different opinions. So I always speak first. I'm gonna cede the floor, and I know you don't mind doing this because you're such a gentleman, more of a gentleman than I am. I'm gonna cede the floor to the lady of the room for the first part of this opinion.
Oh, you want my opinion first?
Yeah, because you have a totally different opinion. I think we sit on the same side on this a little bit.
I don't know. I don't remember what you said about it, but we're gonna find out.
We'll find out.
We're gonna find out.
I mean, it's a lot of different equations to this. I mean, now, I don't think that it was warranted just because, I mean, I don't promote abuse, first off. I mean, he just went up there and just slapped him in front of, I'm serious.
Millions of folks.
Yeah, I mean, it's just everything. It's like to me, I don't think it was the case that she was sick because he had laughed at the joke at first, and then as soon as he looked and seen that his wife, he wasn't too happy about it. That's when he felt like he had to get his manhood up and go up and slap him.
So you feel like it was an ego trip?
I really think it was an ego trip for real, because he was laughing he's a comedian, and at the end of the day, it's a few things. It's like, where is comedy if we have to slap everybody that offends us? Like, where does comedy go? Like, comedy is already down the ditch because people are so sensitive and they take offense to everything. So it's like now comedians have to fear just saying something at an award show that wasn't that's a personal opinion, but I don't think it was too offensive where, for him to do all that. But that's just my opinion. I mean, I think that it wasn't warranted. I think it was an ego trip. I think Will is going through some things. I mean, even his acceptance speech was so emotional. It's like you could tell it's a lot of things that's going on within him. And if he wanted to slap someone, maybe he should have slapped somebody else. And I'm not going to, and that's all I'm going to say.
What you have to say, Jane?
I'm gonna let you give your opinion first.
No, go ahead.
Well, no, because I mean, I do actually tend to agree that it was not, as a comedian, and I'm not saying I'm a comedian, but if I was a comedian, I most definitely believe that any and everybody is victim. First and foremost, it's my job to make fun. Okay? President, not president, young, old, able, disabled, as a comedian, that's my job. That's what I do. I get paid to tell jokes or poke fun. That's what the court jester did before the king. He made fun and he poked jokes. That's his job. So when you are doing your job in that way, I mean, everybody's fair game. And I get it. You don't go to a comedy show and sit in the front and dress any old kind of way without knowing that you might be subject to you might be the butt of a joke. Now, he made the insinuating circumstances that may be because what I saw in the video, just like Bree did, he laughed and I saw her face, and her face did not show me that she was not thrilled about it. And under the circumstances of everything that's taken place in the last several months between the two of them and his I don't know, call it pride, it has taken a major hit that he had to go stand up for, despite the fact that things have gone the way they have, it's still his wife.
Yeah.
And if he took offense to it, and she took offense to it, now he feels like he has to go defend her.
Yeah.
And so was he right in doing so? He dealt with it as best as he thought he needed to deal with it at that time, which may or may not have been the best way to handle it. Now, how would you have handled it?
So I'm going to differ, in my opinion, with you guys on this, right? So there's three aspects of it that I think that we have to look at. Is yes, comedy has to be free, and they have a right to the First Amendment to be able to speak or to say what they want to say, right? But we also understand that comedy has to have limitations too, because a lot of times we don't understand what a person has personally been through, and their experience makes a huge difference, right? So it's kind of like, for me, if I'm sitting in a room and somebody's doing comedy and they're talking about people who do drugs or crack, right? If you don't know that my mom was a crack addict back when I was a child, in the process of what I had to go through in order to get to where I'm at now, because of the some of the decisions that she made, that does become a little bit personal to me, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that first off, the Oscars was not. Let's be honest, the Oscars was not a comedy show. It was not in his script for him to go up and say what he said about Jada. He chose to say what he said about Jada, right? That was the first thing. It wasn't like his script was already outlined. He was there to present an award. He took a moment, which most comedians would do. He took a moment to poke fun, right? And of course, Jada was up front. But we all, based upon what I've read today, there was a history of why she cut her hair, and it was publicly known to a lot of people back then. And based on what I read, if him and Will was supposed to be that close of friends, right? He should have or he would have known about what she was personally going through in order to get her to that point. It's like a person who had to cut their hair due to cancer. That's not something we should make fun of, because you're not going through what that person is going through every day. You're not going through the chemo of it. You're not going through the radiation of it. And it's almost like, I've seen people personally who died up close to cancer, and the impact that it had, that's not something that we make, even in my family. I've watched a cousin who died in excruciating death due to cancer, and his body had to go through a lot of things that I couldn't even imagine. And I remember even particular, like when he was dying, I remember he had like the cancer that started eating through his flesh, and they would be taking like a cloth and wiping off his flesh, and he would be crying, but he couldn't speak to us, right? So if somebody talks about that or make a joke about that, I take it personally. And it's kind of like what we had a discussion about one time before, the R word, right? Remember we talked about the R word? When people have used, I'm going to say
I know what you're
right? People have used the word retarded, right? And I literally had somebody who was at an interview that I had done, and they had gotten hired for a job, and one of the district managers was like, oh, that's just retarded. And the person was like, don't say that around me. Don't ever say that around me. Again, that's the most ridiculous word you can say. And they were highly offended. Yeah. And they never even came back to the job based upon the word that somebody had used the day before. Again, until you've been in somebody's shoes and you understand that person's experience, even if he didn't know exactly what Jada had gone through, the fact that I knew that it was a medical condition that put her in the situation that she's in, I think that deserves some sentimental value to it. And I don't think it's any differently. Like, we were ripping somebody a couple of weeks ago about them talking about Joe Biden's son and his son dying from cancer. Like, I think when Joe Biden gave his State of the Union speech, he talked about how we're going to defeat cancer. Somebody yelled out during the middle of the speech, but the man was talking about his son.
Him?
But he probably would have if he was close enough to him.
There's a time and a place to handle things,
but
in my opinion.
I do agree that he should not have stepped up on that stage to slap him, right? That there's better ways of handling it. But again, until you're actually in there and that raw emotion is something that you have to deal with, you know what I'm saying? You don't know. We know of what we see and we read about their personal relationship. And that's the reason why I kind of have gone off this metaphor. Like, unless I'm personally there, I don't get involved in people's business no more, because you don't know what they're personally dealing with. And you talked about the personal things they've dealt with. You kind of mentioned it. But who was to say like what the counseling they have gone through since that time, the different things they've dealt with in their personal relationship. So maybe Will felt like, and I would say this as a man, and I would hope you agree on this part, but as a man, if my wife feels disrespected, I have an obligation to make her feel safe. Period. No matter what it does, right? So it's like, y'all have seen that movie. There was a movie it wasn't Kerry Washington, I forgot the lady name, but she plays in Avatars. But it was a movie, I think Tyler Perry wrote about race and about how this cop had kind of like pulled them over, and her husband was sitting in the car, but the cop felt up her leg, and she was very offended, like, you're my husband, and you didn't do anything about it. And it did something to their relationship, right? Yes. And I think that most women most people who are in a relationship wants to feel like their significant other has their back. And I think that if he would have just like kind of brushed it off and just have completely done nothing. Not did he was slapping him the right thing? Probably not. He probably could have pulled him to the side, but like, you know, or he could have yelled out. He could have yelled out like, "Don't keep my wife's name out your mouth," right? You know what I'm saying? Like he did in the video. He didn't have to go out there and hit the man. But I do think that as a husband, as a role, there's a different aspect of it when it comes to protecting your significant other. And I would think that even if you were in a relationship,
I mean, yeah,
definitely if it offended you. Like, we knew, looking at the video, you seen it offended.
Yeah, but I think, well, and this is me, I don't think it had anything to do with her sickness. I really feel like it's something that they got going on, because even people that are dealing with certain issues, it's almost like comedy is like a light to them. Like, people that, when people talk about someone that's suffering with something, they're laughing at it, because it's not like he was like going hard or degrading her. He was just saying G.I. Jane, which is a movie that she...
But I mean, even think about, but from this perspective, even think about things that may have happened to you in your personal life, right? There's certain things that I may think is a joke that you may not take as a joke, right? And I go back to even, I think one time we had a meeting one time, and we were in a meeting, and I'm not going to say the person's name, but we were in a meeting, and they had addressed that somebody in their family had to get a COVID vaccine. It was mandated on them to get the COVID vaccine. And I had made the comment along the lines of like, oh, well, that's funny how you allowed them to get it, but you didn't get it yourself. And that person shut me down, and they had every right to, right? Because what was a joke to me was, in his household, was a personal conversation. It was something that they felt like it was just off limits, right? And that person still works today, right? But that person shut me down and was like, you know, that's not funny. That may be funny to you, but this is my household, this is my family, and I don't want it in my household. And you got, and it just caused us to have to be, I'm just saying that I think that there are certain situations where we have to have, I get comedy, but there's a way to be funny and to still be respectful of other people's opinions or the way other people feel. Because I'm pretty sure, like, I don't know if is Chris Rock even married? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure.
He might be.
I look at comedy different. I mean, I come from Dave Chappelle. Like Dave Chappelle had no, like, he talked about everybody could get it. Like, so that's just me, but that's just me personally. I take jokes, like, I laugh at things. I don't take things too serious. But like you said, everybody's different, so.
But not even that. Like, we all can probably agree that Will Smith, and he personally would say that he's been dealing with some mental health things since this has all happened, and he's been taking counseling, he's been doing all that other kind of stuff. And that's public information. We all know that. He's been very open on Red Table Talks about how he felt about him and Jada's last relationship, and how he felt about, like, how he's been taking counseling. And we've been seeing him go on his Twitter, even one of the people who played his mom on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He just reconnected with her last year, right? And there was a whole segment where he had kind of broke down how he didn't get a chance, give her opportunity to hear how she felt about how he had handled the situation, right? And he apologized to her, but we see him progressing, going through something. It's like Kanye West, right? I hate to talk about business, but it's like going after him about mental health issues when it's commonly known that Kanye West suffers from, bipolarism, right? And to make fun of that on a public stage like that would not be the place to do that at. You know what I'm saying? I think, because again, too, until you're dealing with it, it means something different to you. It's like me making fun of somebody's mother passing away.
I don't know if he knew, though. I don't think he knew. I feel like Chris is honorable enough where he wouldn't make fun of her if he knew. Like, because the type of man, you can see the type of man he is, because he could have easily fought him. He could have pressed charges. I think that you're right. Will Smith did laugh about it in the beginning. But Chris Rock, if you watch the video, even after she wrote the eyes, continued to push along with the issue, right? And I'm still not justifying. Don't get me wrong. I'm not justifying Will slapping him in the mouth, right? There's no justification for that. But at some point, when if I seen like, okay, this is a place that you don't want me to keep going down, maybe there should have been a stopping point for Chris Rock too at the same time. Like, he did stop.
Nah, he didn't. Like, because if you
he said that was nice. He's like, that was a nice joke. Well, he did try to stop. He was like, that's a nice joke, because he seen how she was offended, and he's like, that was a nice joke. Like, he tried that. Right. So he did see Chris side of things.
I'll tell you like this. Even though you both are correct, by the way. However, yes, I am going to defend to the end. Don't get it twisted now. How I choose to handle the situation is entirely up to me. Whether I stay back and just let it slide and I'll just pull you to the side afterwards, that might be something else. You know what I'm saying? But I definitely will. I may not handle it by, laying hands.
For the record, that was just me.
By laying hands
Please don't.
without
I'm
oil.
not trying to make fun of you.
Right? But although I may not lay hands without oil, I will pull you to the side and tell you, man, hey, look, that was not cool.
Yeah.
But I think,
And we're going to have a conversation about it.
But on top of that, I have friends of mine who don't have the public platform that Will Smith has, and who have told me like one time before they had to almost hem somebody up over their wife, maybe by making a comment that was inappropriate about that. If you love somebody, Bree, you've been
like he said, what he say? Love make you do crazy things.
Yep.
So he
And
did
Will
some
Smith
crazy things.
He did admit to that. And again, when you love somebody, and until you know what that person's personally going through, I think that we may not need to be so judgmental. Either way, right? I do hear your point that Chris Rock is a comedian, and I like Bill Maher, and Bill Maher always talks about this thin line between being a comedian and just being, a public figure. And like
being a donkey.
Yeah, like even when it comes down to like there's certain schools that he can't go and speak in because of the fact of his comedy, right?
Yeah.
And I do believe there's a thin line, but I also think that no matter what career you're in, we have to also throw in the fact that people, and definitely right now, like we live in a society right now, I think everybody's on emotions. Everybody's extra emotional.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna tell you, from both sides of the coin, you as a comedian, you can get it. As a lover of my woman, you can get it.
But I bet you,
and you gonna get it.
as my about to say, I bet you that feeling of being a lover of your woman is stronger than being a comedian.
It just has to be put in that situation. But promise you, on site, you gonna get it.
See, so James would have slept him.
On site. We finna discuss.
But let me
this.
ask you another question though too. If you were offended by something and your dude sat there and watched you be offended by it and did nothing about it, how would you feel?
Well, I would say in that situation, I wouldn't get.
No.
I know. I wouldn't get offended though, because I don't get, like, I'm looking at the bigger picture and I'm looking at how foolish you look for your career and everything. So I would think you look dumb. Like, I'd be like, you can't keep your cool, you can't contain your emotions. Like, handle that later.
Okay, you know what? I would say, you know what?
I don't like emotional,
I'm
like,
glad you
like
said
that.
it.
But
That's me,
here's
like,
the thing though.
I don't like emotional, like,
But you
don't
have,
cry
but
on
you have,
stage, like,
but you have to remember.
crazy.
But you have to
Don't
remember
look
now.
because you
All the stuff, all the heartache and pain that he's had to build, that's built up in him over the last few months since everything came out at the red table.
Yeah, but
So with all of that, he's been having to deal with all of that.
Those
himself,
emotions.
Emotionally. This may have just been the one thing that pushed him over the
so
edge.
Chris Face
and
gotta
he
suffer
dealt-
the.
Hey,
suffer
no,
that?
it's not.
Again,
It's
as a lover of my woman,
Yeah.
you can get it. Now, as a comedian, I can get it because you're a comedian. I know this. I know that I run the risk, especially sitting in front or being out there in a public figure.
But also
I know
too,
I can get. I know I can
But
get
let's
it
make it
because
clear,
of
it's
the
not
fact-
like Will Smith said, I choose this table. Because he was being honored, or because
Well,
of the nominee,
yeah.
he had a certain spot,
and
right?
as a roast. Well,
I think
won't
they
say it
roasted
was a
Samuel
roast.
Jackson earlier
But-
that night, too.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you
And he
can.
gave some faces like, if I was a little bit closer. His wife at one point gave a face like, oh, you may have overstepped your boundary on that one.
Right.
I think that comedy, I get it, right? I come from the age of Richard Pryor, huge fan of Richard Pryor, to where things are unfiltered, but I do believe that we live in a society now where everybody's literally on edge about everything, right? And then we're coming out of a point where we've seen it, like even when it comes down to divorce and stuff like that, we've seen that COVID exposed people who are really not supposed to be in relationships together. What happened?
Another time.
Oh, we expose people who are not supposed to be in relationships together. So I think that from a standpoint, I think Will Smith can handle it differently, but I also think that Chris Rock plays an important role because he could have just stuck to the script, comedian or not. Every moment is not a moment for coming. Real quick before we close out, I do want to continue to just give a shout out and say for those who are out here watching the Supreme Court nomination, let's make sure that we continue to support her. This is her last week. She's doing some interviews this week with different senators. We're going up for a rally to support her nomination. I still find it disheartening that out of everything that we're going through and out of her whole history, we're still having the question of whether she's qualified to be on the bench or not. Way overqualified. And we got ripped about this last week. If you read the Facebook post from last week when we talked about her,
Really?
Oh my God, yeah. Tremendously got ripped. And we're still being ripped. But I think that she's supremely qualified. Whether or not you agree with her philosophy or not, doesn't disqualify her from sitting on the bench. So we want to just remind everybody, continue to go out there and support, no matter where you stand at. Like, we have a constitution. If you stand for the Constitution, then the president has the right to nominate whoever he wants to nominate. And this Senate's job is just to consult and to see if they're qualified to sit on the bench or not. And that's not the way this is happening. This is not going down like that. And it'll be a great travesty if her vote is 51 to 50 with the tiebreaker being Kamala Harris, because she's way overqualified. She's way qualified.
Yeah.
More qualified than a lot of people already sitting.
Yeah.
Sit on the bench. So shout out to Judge Jackson. I don't care what they say about you. Like, I'm gonna repeat what Cory Booker said. You are worthy of the seat that you're sitting in. So
Absolutely.
Don't make me cry. That was emotional.
Oh, but you can cry about that.
But that was real.
That real passion for his wife was real.
That's lame. That's all I gotta say. It's lame, period.
So, but thank you once again, everyone, for joining us once again for Push Talk. We look forward to being able to for you coming back on and watching us tomorrow.
And what are y'all talking about tomorrow?
Oh, all kind of different things, man. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun show.
Maybe another slap going on.
Maybe.
Well, everybody, remember to go out. Make sure you register to vote. Make sure you get out and vote. Definitely for those in Georgia. There's a lot going on in the state of Georgia, a lot going on at the House. This is our last week of session here in the state of Georgia, so it's important that you pay attention to what's going on. And until tomorrow, be safe, everybody.
Yeah.